Welcome to the Arcfluence Podcast, where we talk about how design impacts the way we live, work, and invest. I'm Nick Carrican, your host, and with me as usual is my business partner and co-host, Paul Fatkins.
Hello. How are you today?
I'm great. We just recorded an amazing episode.
Yeah. This one's going to be, it was hard to go through because it's the whole time I was so hungry. I just wanted to go and grab some, grab some pastries and some,
If you guys want the best egg sandwich in the world, you have to go to Fox in the Snow in Columbus, Ohio. Today's guest, Lauren Culley from Fox in the Snow, co-founder. Wow, we had a great time today.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. So I'm sure everybody will enjoy listening. And like I said, if you feel yourself getting hungry, just go grab a pastry, go grab an egg sandwich.
And a coffee. All right, let's get into it. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So we're really excited about this interview. I lived in New York for 10 years. My wife, Sarah, longer than that. We were doing the long distance thing when we were in college, which was a ton of fun. But you guys are from New York too. We got a lot actually in common. Can you give us the origin story? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm actually a native Ohioan, Midwest through and through, from my food palate to, the way I handle seasons, talking to the person next to me on the plane when they don't want to be talked to. I'm a true Midwesterner. But I also knew after my first visit to New York that I was this is where I'm supposed to be and this is for me. So I, after graduate school, I moved to New York City, and I actually first got involved in the publishing industry, which is actually what brought me to New York other than just, desire. And so I had a job as an associate editor at a publishing house, and would work with the publisher and would read novels and decide what I thought should be passed along and give feedback on books. And while it in theory sounded like my dream job, in reality, I felt there was a creative side or a creative part of my brain that wasn't getting, triggered.
Yeah, satisfied.
And I was... Yeah, satisfied. And I was living in Brooklyn at the time, and it was my first exposure to the food scene, and it was smorgasbord, and everybody my age was doing something cool and fun, and there was a community around it. Everybody's friends were in the food industry, and they were finding their partners in the food industry, and it was just such a different world than what I was involved in.
And when you're in New York, you're so busy with whatever profession you're in, you eat out all the time, every single meal.
All the time.
It's part of culture there. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I went to Smorgasbord one day. My mom was visiting from Ohio. I went to this bread stand, and there was a guy, he was a bread baker, owned the business, and he was ripping the bread apart, and he was slathering it with kale pesto and house-made mozzarella that he had made that morning. He was serving it to you in this piece of craft paper or whatever. And I ate it, and I was this is the best thing I've ever had. And
yeah, I was just describing it. Sounds like, I'm starting to get hungry just hearing it. Jeez.
Yeah, well, and also I think it was sort of my first exposure to somebody being I'm going to hand make every single part of this thing. I'm going to think through every single part of this thing. It's not going to be pretty. It's not, pretty in its own way, right? It's going to be messy, and it's going to be and there was it was just really exciting for me. So I asked the baker if I could volunteer. I was I'll work the stand for you, whatever you want me to do. I just want to be a part of this. And he was a young startup, and he was great, yes. And so I worked the flea market stand for him, and then I would go work in the bread bakery. And unfortunately, the bakery is not there any longer, but it was my intro to working in a kitchen and working with food. And I would do it after work and on the weekends. And then it got to the point where I would just sit at my desk and look at the clock and be how long till I can get to this bakery,
Yes.
And so then I started looking for a job in food, and I had no experience, and I had no culinary degree, you know. And there was a job that got posted at Blue Bottle, which then was still really new. It had one location in New York when I got hired. And it was a cookie scooper, basically. And hourly was really low. And I left my career I left my insurance and I left my 401k and I did the whole thing. And I was like, this is it. This is how I'm going to get in.
I remember those days too. Scary.
Yeah. And it was, and
Well,
also I was like never more excited.
Yeah.
Right.
I was going to say, if you have passion behind what you're doing, right? Like, yeah, it's scary, but I mean, if the passion is there, it's going to eventually work out.
Right.
You know?
Right. But
Yeah.
you're terrified, but you're also working twice as many hours, and there's meaning behind your life and your day to day. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It was really exciting. And I showed up to my first day of work and I walked up to the barista behind the counter and I was like, my name's Lauren. I'm here for my first day of work. And the guy that I was talking to was my future husband. And met him, day one of working at Blue Bottle. And it's weird because, it feels like I was figuring things out for so many years. And then it was like, as soon as I met Jeff and as soon as I started working at Blue Bottle, it was just like a rocket. It was like everything had been lining up. And then once it had aligned, it really just flew. So I learned how to run the kitchen. I ended up being the kitchen manager for Blue Bottle. They opened a number of locations in New York while I was there. Jeff was the manager of their flagship location and roastery in Williamsburg. And so he had experience running a front of house. I got some experience running the back of the house. And then during that time, I came and visited my family in Ohio. And I was like, man, Columbus feels really different than when I went to school here.
What year was that when you came back to Columbus?
2013.
Yeah, we came
is when I came back.
We came back in 2017.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it was like, it just really felt different. In a good way.
Yeah.
I was from the Cleveland area, and I remember coming to Columbus and like Polaris Park, and there was nothing there in the early 2000s. Like Columbus just started sprawling and growing, and today it's one of the fastest growing cities in the country. You saw the opportunity like we did.
Yeah, I'm from the Akron area originally, so Northeast Ohio as well. And I spent some time in Chicago, but yeah, we'd come down here for like COSI or something like that when we were younger.
Yes.
But you're right. Like Columbus has really transformed recently.
So how long were you in New York, and then until 2013 when you came back to Ohio?
I think I was in New York. Jeff and I moved. So Jeff is originally from California.
Okay.
And he and I came to New York about the same time. I think Jeff was there for 6 years and I was there for 7, maybe.
Okay.
And we started dating pretty soon after we met each other. And then I came back to visit Ohio. We really had maybe been dating, I don't know, 6 months maybe. And I came back and I was like, it's such a different place. And if somebody could figure out how to do something similar to what we were doing in Williamsburg, I was like, I really think they'd crush it, And my dad was like, you should just come back and do it. And then it was like, once he said that, I was like, well,
and your first location was the Short North, right?
Yeah, the first location was 4th Street. And that was crazy because we kept finding buildings that we liked. And then by the time we inquired about it, it was like, oh, a developer's already bought it.
They're gone.
Yeah. Oh, it's already going to get torn down. We just couldn't.
It's harder now. It's harder now.
I want to take
It is harder now.
Yeah. And I want to take one step back. So for me, Fox in the Snow, the name, it's just so evocative. I love the name. And, Nick and I remember when we were picking the name for our company, it was a struggle. And we spent, I don't know how many times.
Everything was taken.
Everything
just
was
like
taken.
the real estate.
We spent so many times talking about it. I'm curious to hear a little bit about the origin of Fox in the Snow, like where that name came from, what spawned it.
So when we decided we were going to move back to Columbus, I was going to move back to Columbus. Jeff was going to move for the first time. we really started honing in on like what's the menu, what's it going to feel like, and then the last thing was the name, and we could not, like you said, it's so
hard. Yeah.
And it's like harder than naming a child, you know, because it's like you want
business
it
is your child.
Oh yeah, I mean, and you want it to like evoke something, but not the wrong thing, and you want it to sound different than other people, but not so different that they don't know what it is, and like. So we were getting ready to go. There's a Scottish band from the 90s called Bell and Sebastian. And we were getting ready to go to a Bell and Sebastian concert in Prospect Park. And as you do before you go to a concert, we were like listening to the music in the apartment. And they have a song called Fox in the Snow. And the first lines of the song are Fox in the Snow, where do you go to find something you can eat? And Jeff was like, let's just call it Fox in the Snow and call it a day. And it was the same thing. I was like, that is the name.
Wow.
And then while we were there getting ready for the concert, I was like, the logo will be this like jumping fox. And like, I know exactly what it's going to look like. And so you just couldn't convince me it wasn't the best name ever. And everyone in our lives tried to convince us that it was not the right name.
I'm so happy that you were like, no, I love it.
Which honestly is typical because all your friends and family, when you're shooting for the stars, have their concerns about your success.
Yeah. And like, they weren't wrong. You know, people were like, the name's too long. It doesn't say what you are. Like, it's hard to remember. Like it was, and none of those things are incorrect. But I was like, I know this. And like the logo, once we found this artist in Chicago, she drew us the logo, paid her a couple $100. And once I saw that logo, I was like, I just know I'm going to put this on everything. I mean, there's certain things that really just kind of are illuminated for me when we were starting the business. Like they just kind of light up and you hang on to them. It's like all the other stuff's going on around you and you're like, well, we'll just stay like this is what we're clinging to. And to be honest, that fox, the jumping fox and the name in the beginning were kind of like what we really clung to.
I love it. We're definitely going to dig into design aspects of your locations and all the things, but
I was going to say we can now go back to talk about the first location if you want.
No, I actually want to say, I actually want to tell you that my wife Sarah and I have been, first of all, when we came to Columbus in 2017, this was a big step down. Like this was a small town for me, right? And now it's so much more, and it's growing so fast. So everything is just exceeded our expectations. I love Columbus with all my heart. But one of our like getaways is finding. When we discovered Fox in the Stove, we're just like, gosh, this feels so much like New York. I love this. When I ate the egg sandwich for the first time, I lost my mind. And I'm just like, did I just get on a plane, fly to New York City, and like it is creamy, mustardy with the bacon and this caramelized and the egg and the ciabatta and I'm like, this is awesome. We are doing this every weekend, and we actually have a weekly date on the weekends where we go and we get an egg sandwich amongst other things. It's amazing.
I love that. I do think I was talking to somebody who's like a higher up at Wendy's once, and she was talking about how Wendy's has to compete with the nostalgia of a Happy Meal. Like a Wendy's kids meal can never match up with a Happy Meal because you as an adult have this memory, right, of that little red box. And she was like, and then you pass it on and then your kid has nostalgia. And she was like, you can't compete with nostalgia. And she was like, if you can get in the beginning of your business, like kids are like, my mom would take me to Fox in the Snow on my birthday. We would always get cinnamon rolls the day before Christmas. She was like, if you can lock into nostalgia or routine or memory, she's like, then it's better than any marketing you could ever have. And I feel really lucky because so many people are like, I have a date standing here, or like, I met my husband here. I met my wife here. People are like, oh, when my friends come in from out of town, this is my favorite shop and this is what we always get. And like, I love hearing that stuff. It's like, it's when the shop becomes bigger than you. It's when it becomes bigger than like coming up with a name and thinking of a fox, it's just, it takes on its own life. It's like it's a living thing,
And Lauren, I'm really happy to be one of those million people that had egg sandwich.
It's funny because like when I can be in the shop and I can be starving and and there's food everywhere and I'm like, oh my God, there's nothing to eat. And I bet once every 6 months I have an egg sandwich and then I'll eat it and I'll be like, oh my God, have you guys had this? This is so good. Like 11 years in, I still am like, man, this thing. I was talking to somebody recently about this where they were like, oh, you got to give me the recipe for whatever it was. And I was like, the recipe for every single thing we make is so basic. Like you'd be like, there's no way that's the recipe. It's like butter, flour, sugar. It's just the way that we're handling the ingredients. It's like even the sauce. It's like the sauce is not. I saw somebody try to do a copycat recipe of the Fox in the Snow egg sandwich online. And I went through and I was like, this poor girl has 3 times as many ingredients as she needs.
Yeah. So talk to us about your growth over the last decade. You've had tremendous success. Ironically enough, we're designing some commercial developments who are like, hey, do you know Fox in the Snow? We want them in our space. So we'll talk to you about that later.
Send them over my way. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, tell us about tell us how you got to where you're at today and how many locations. Yeah. What does that look like? The culture that you're creating with your employees and the lines that are coming out the doors at every location. And I'm like, I'm still going to wait. I'm happy to wait 20 minutes in line to place my order.
Yeah. I think so. When we started, we were like, we imagined it would be this tiny coffee shop. We'd sell a couple pastries. The original business plan had us selling 24 egg sandwiches a day. We were like, if we can hit those numbers, like we'll be fine. We'll just have a mom and pop shop. And then from the minute we opened the door, we were on the defense. Like we just couldn't keep up. And then we also had to pivot because we thought we were going to be a coffee shop that sold baked goods. And it was very clear from the beginning that we were a bakery that sold coffee. And we also imagined we were going to appeal more to 20-somethings and that we'd end up, as a hangout spot. And it was like immediately it was
old millennials.
Older people. Yeah. But it's like, we always talk about how like you have to have stroller parking at all the Fox in the Snows because people do bring their kids and it is college kids, but it's also people who are like so many people in the afternoons are over 45, over 60, like it really just appealed to a larger group than we anticipated. And then it was also so much more food focused. And so when we opened, it was me and one baker. And I remember when we were building out the kitchen, we had one oven and the kitchen equipment guy was like, I really think you might want 2 ovens. And I was like, this guy is like so smarmy. He's trying to like upsell me on an oven. But like, we just we couldn't have imagined,
Yeah.
So the first many years of being open were just spent trying to figure out how to keep up. And how to keep up without compromising how we made things, which is actually very, very hard to do. So I think we didn't open, I should know these numbers, but I don't think we opened our second location for 3 or 4 years. And then once we opened that location, within a year, we opened the third location. And then we had to fully put the brakes on because then we had to catch up again.
Yeah, we ended up moving to German Village, 3 years ago or so, and now we're pretty much invested into your Marion Village location. I guess it's that. I mean, the park. Even if you you go eat, you grab a coffee, and you walk Schiller, it's the best Sunday afternoon you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, it's so nice. Yeah, it's. Sometimes when I talk to people about what it feels like to be an entrepreneur, I'm like, your job changes every single year. And as soon as you get comfortable in the position that you have, it's like, then you either grow and it looks totally different, or the business changes and it looks totally different, or you're doing something wrong and now you have to change the way you're doing it. Yeah. So it was like, we grew, we got to 3, and then we had to upgrade all of our equipment. We had to hire more bakers. We had to change the way that we were getting food out. So it was.
Did you have to compromise the the recipe at all, or are you pretty do you stay consistent?
Not at all. And our 11-year anniversary is tomorrow morning.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the recipe for the cinnamon roll is the same as it was 11 years ago. The way we make the biscuit is exactly the same. I was actually just talking about how Westerville, our 5th location, has been open for a week, and like the thousands of pieces of pastry that they've sold in the 6 days that they've been open. So every single one of those cinnamon rolls has been rolled by hand, like cut by hand. The jam is still made by us, all the custards, all the doughs, every single thing is still made from scratch and with like the most care. And so most of our growth, to me, it's felt kind of slow because, 11 years is a long time, but like so much of it has been, how can we do this and not get over our skis? Or like, how can we do this and not change the way that we're making the food? And then also like, how can we do this and make sure we're in the exact right spot?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I'm up on the north side of Columbus. So yeah, having the Westerville location is like, thank you. I'll throw that out there. But yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Like the customer's perception of the product is definitely a critical thing. And I would say like your consistency there is amazing. I know Danny and I were talking a little bit before you jumped on, and he was saying like every time he walks in there, he's like going in for one thing and he walks out with 5, just because like he's so overwhelmed with how things are presented to him.
You also see everyone. There's so many, like you see people walking out with stuff, and I'm like, listen, I'm gonna eat my egg sandwich because I have to. Yeah. And then I'm also gonna get a pastry to go.
Yeah. Well, you know what's so funny is I was talking to somebody recently about how so much of the pastry display is intentional, like that you want 25 of something out on display and you want it all close together so it just looks like, this cornucopia, right, of all this different stuff. And we don't put any signs in, the little toothpick things that say like cinnamon roll, because I'm like, you know what it is. It's a cinnamon roll. It's a blueberry scone, know? And I want you to shop with your eyes and pick what you want based off of that. But I was talking to somebody recently and they were like, but how did people know to order the egg sandwich? Because it's not on display. Like so much of it is display. Yeah. And I was like, because when you go and we walk through the shop and you see it on a board, everybody's like, what's that? And so we've sold, we've sold well over 1 million of those egg sandwiches. And I'm like, it's word of mouth and you see people walking through the store with it. So it's interesting how much of our shops are visual, and that thing was sort of just, it's
to me, it's like a theater performance almost. I don't know, just like there's something that is emotional about it. Yeah, it's very visual for sure.
So let's talk about that, because as designers, we every single day we put ourselves in spaces and are thoughtful on the experience that our guests, clients, inhabitants, occupants have in a space. I'm sure you have tremendous input on the design of each of your shops. What does that process look like for you?
Yeah. Well, what was really lucky is with 4th Street, with the original shop, it dictated the way that we would design all of the future shops, but in a way where like we thought we were going to have a tiny, maybe, 800 square foot coffee shop. And then when we found 4th Street, it was under garages for rent on Craigslist with no picture. And I was like, I called the landlord and I was like, I want to turn this into a bakery. I will sign a lease for 20 years. Like, I want this space. Yeah. And we went to go look at it, and it was like 10 degrees outside. It was a cinder block building, no HVAC, no plumbing, no electricity. And Jeff and I walked in and we were like, it's beautiful. Like, we'll sign right now, But then all of the money that we thought we were going to put into this jewel box of an 800 square foot coffee shop went into HVAC and plumbing and electricity and trenching. Yeah. And so when we got to the design part of 4th Street, we were broke. And So we put all of our money in windows and wood and trees. And we didn't have money for like fancy light fixtures, and I had to salvage those. And we didn't have money for wallpaper, and so I like hand painted what's in the back of the shop. And so what we didn't know was happening at the time is we were setting the standard for sort of what we try to hang on to when we're designing other shops. So it's like every Fox in the Snow has to have multiple trees. Every Fox in the Snow has to have as little wall space as is humanly possible. Like we'll put windows, we'll blow the budget on windows because we just want natural light, you know? We try to make sure there's a communal table to try to create like intimacy. So every Fox in the Snow will have a communal table. Those salvaged lights that we put over that first communal table now are in every single shop and are a non-negotiable as we move forward. And then the way that that garage was designed was there was like a little alcove where they would paint trucks. And we were like, well, we don't have the money to tear this down and do anything else to it. So let's just enclose it, put windows on it, and it'll be the kitchen. And then there was a visible kitchen, which was like part of the show and part of the story. And let you see that we were doing everything by hand.
Yeah.
And that was also like a fortuitous thing because now every single Fox in the Snow, you have to be able to see into the kitchen.
Yeah.
So now when we design, it's like, how can I make it feel related to every other shop? And how can I also honor the space that it's in? So like, how can I make it like if this, like at German Village, the ceiling is like the original tin ceiling from like 100 years ago. So
Yep.
like, how can we make sure that we preserve that? How can we work within the space that we chose? Because we're so selective with the spaces. So now we think about those kind of things, but it's so funny that like so much of the design now is how do we have it be consistent, but also if you're at Westerville, you're like, this is my neighborhood shop and it feels totally different than 4th Street. But like I can go in and I know they're both Fox in the Snows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think just hanging on to those like 5 things is kind of how we do it now.
Yeah, I love I mean, like, there's a connection back, like you said, a connection back to the product that you're selling as well, because there's like certain creativity in the fact that it's handmade, hand selected. Like you said, you kind of ran out of budget, so you were forced to do those things. But at the end of the day, like, it directly relates to what you're making and producing. And it's, I mean, like, it's like perfectly aligned. You know, the design side of it is matching up with what you're, you know, serving to the customers.
Yeah. And I think, you know, coming from New York also really influenced a lot of how we designed the space because, you know, the tables are like, for a Midwesterner, like uncomfortably close together. But if you're in New York, you're like, wow, it's so spacious. But like, we intentionally put the tables really, really close together. And one thing that happened at Blue Bottles, they didn't have Wi-Fi. It was like they wanted the space to always feel alive. They wanted there to be noise. They didn't want it to just be a quiet space with a bunch of headphones. And so when we opened 4th Street, we didn't have Wi-Fi and people were livid, so mad. And we were like, no, we want it to be like a loud, you know, within reason, like space where like you go to talk. And also the space was small. So if we have somebody who camps out on a computer for however many hours, like we'll never be able to stay open.
Right.
So
well,
we didn't have Wi-Fi.
It's so funny you say that because of the environment, I don't take clients there for meetings. I go to a quieter place to have a thoughtful conversation. I go there because when I'm hanging out with friends and family, I want to have fun and I want to eat great food. So you're absolutely right. You structured that perfectly.
Yeah. And there's no, there's a frustrating lack of outlets. Like we intentionally try to have almost no outlets in the cafe. We made the bar lower than normal, so that you felt closer to the barista.
Yeah.
Anna's been here 10 plus years. And when she came in, she came in to basically run the kitchen so I could step out. And we were rolling all the dough with a rolling pin, and Anna's like, we got to get a sheeter, like even a tabletop sheeter. And I was like, no, I don't, nothing automated. Like everything has to be from scratch.
Yeah.
And Anna was like, cool, but like, we're going to die. You know, like we had to make so much stuff. And so like we have grown to the point where we have 3 full-size sheeters running, starting at 5 a.m. every day, you know,
Wow.
like just
Jeez.
all just running. And today, Anna and I were back there, and Anna's like, do you remember when we were rolling everything with a rolling pin? And I was like, yes, I do. I remember that. But sheeted, even with a sheeter, laminated dough is hard.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
just hard. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that initially you were saying you were thinking that you guys were going to be more of a coffee shop and the bakery is secondary, right? And then very quickly you found out that the bakery is really the primary kind of focus or whatever genesis of everything that's going on, and coffee is kind of secondary. And when you're talking about you know, the use of the space and how people use the space and how you want it to be an active environment with, you know, the Wi-Fi and nobody's sitting there on the computer and just plugged in. I mean, to me, like, yeah, that's what a coffee shop is. You go to the coffee shop, you grab a coffee, you sit there on your computer and you do some work or whatever. So again, like it aligns, I think, very well, that design philosophy, the choice and how the space is activated, how people use the space, again, connects more to the bakery side as well versus like a coffee shop environment.
Well, I think the thoughtfulness of doing more business, to be fair, and you know, customer turnover and encouraging conversation, it feels like New York. Like it doesn't feel like the Midwest, and that's what I think makes it special. So bravo to you on that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what's the next thing? What's the next big thing? I know you just opened another location, but what's your future vision? Are you going to stay in Columbus? Tell us the future of Fox in the Snow.
For so long, we were living like month to month. And the most we could do is try to figure out, you know, in December, what pastry we were going to make for Valentine's Day. Like that's as the bandwidth that we had for how far we could think. And then we were lucky enough that after we opened Dublin, which was our 4th location, we took a year and we were like, we're just going to fix the foundation, like the infrastructure of the business. And we're going to bring in people where we need to bring in people. And we're going to get these numbers right. And we're going to really just focus on that, so that, because we knew we wanted to grow. And, you know, coming from Blue Bottle, who, since we started working there, has sold to Nestle and is literally international, you know, we knew we wanted to grow. We've never made it a secret that we wanted to grow as long as there was a demand for it. And so we really took that year to be like, well, how do we grow in a smart way? And I think pausing after the 3rd location to get everything in order, and then pausing after the 4th location to get everything even more in order, I think has been so important to us, so that like when we opened Westerville, the kitchen wasn't stressed. We had the right managers in place. We didn't run out of food. I think if you were there on opening day and you were a customer, like it ran like it had been there for years, you know, and that's really intentional. Like the amount of time that we take to make sure that we know we can do something before we do it. That said, having taken the past year to reinvest in like the foundation of everything, we're ready to grow some more. And one of the really amazing things about Columbus is how many neighborhoods, I mean, it really is like such a neighborhood shop, and all of the shops have their regulars. And like you could go I went to Dublin recently, and it was a barista's birthday, and like the customers were bringing her birthday presents, you know, because it's like their barista and they know their name, and they talk all the time. And so they really do become neighborhood spaces, which is the dream. And so there's still a couple neighborhoods in Columbus that feel like we could contribute to them, and that there might be a demand for a Fox in the Snow in those neighborhoods. So I think opening another 2 in the next year is probably very likely. And then I think trying to figure out, is there more of a need in Columbus, or is there another place that feels similar to what Columbus felt like when we got here? I think that will be the next conversation.
That's exciting.
Yeah. I had one final question as well. Like, over your journey here, the last 11 years, you said, I'm curious, like, is there something that you can share that's like a surprising thing that you learned along the journey, be it through like the food service side or managing the business, or something on the design side? Is there like one thing that stands out to you as like a memorable moment, like over your journey, where it's like, looking back, I'm so glad this happened, or I'm so glad we did this, connected to whatever side of it? And like you said, at the end of the day, when you ran out of budget because of all the things that it needed to bring it, to bring it to life, it's kind of like a happy accident, because at the end of the day, all that hand touch that you put into it, right?
Well,
to take it over the finish line.
You couldn't over-design it.
Yeah, you couldn't.
You couldn't over-design it.
Well, and it set the tone. It also set the tone for all the future locations too.
1,000%. Yes. And when I've heard people describe Fox and Snow, they're either like, it's rustic, or it's minimal, or it's industrial. And all of those things, I'm like, that's 4th Street. Like, it's just, it really kind of forced us into the loveliest of places. But then, I guess, and I know this sounds corny, but it's very, very true. But the thing that I think that has surprised me is how much, I think when you are designing it in your head, like, you're thinking of every single detail, and you have such control over it. And you think people are going to receive it in a certain way, and this thing's going to be something people notice, and this is going to be a favorite or whatever. And then, because you're a public space, you open the door, and then I think I wasn't prepared for how much it becomes a relationship between you and the people that come in, right? So, like, for example, we were a coffee shop, and we were going to sell 24 egg sandwiches. And now at 4th Street, we're a bakery, and probably tomorrow I'll sell 500 sandwiches at one location on one day, So it's like having the balance, or figuring out the balance between these are our North Stars that we're not going to stray from. And also, this is my customer, and this is what they're responding to. And like, trying to figure out how to keep those things parallel all the time, I think has been really hard. But also, as soon as we opened the doors, Columbus really like willed us into being, like we ran out of food all the time. We were tired all the time. We were figuring out what to do, and people kept showing up, and people kept telling their friends. And, like, we opened Westerville on Saturday, 6 days ago. And I pulled up at 5:30 in the morning to help open the shop. And there were 10 people sitting outside the shop waiting for the shop to be open, and that kind of thing, people are like, oh, isn't that so exciting? And like, yes, it's exciting, but it's also like so overwhelming, and it feels really emotional. And I think the way that people are loyal to Fox in the Snow and have memories around it, and how they have a sense of ownership for it, those are the things that I don't think you could ever anticipate. And you can't ever even dream will happen, because it feels, like too much. But, that line, the opening line at Westerville, I think it was like, it was hundreds of people long. It was probably an hour and a half to get in the building, and I was talking to Anna, the baker, and we were standing next to each other, and I was like, man, all of this for a bakery. She was like, no, it's not a bakery. It's a story, like, you don't wait in line just for a cinnamon roll. Like, you're waiting in line to be a part of something. And I think that's the thing that's been really overwhelming, and that's made me feel like the most lucky. Like, one of the greatest lucks of my lifetime is just, being able to interact with people in that way, and to have people want to be a part of this story,
That's so good. That's so good. So entrepreneurship is on the rise. And I think it's becoming a cultural thing, and a lot of younger people are trying it, right? or considering it. And part of what we do here with ArcFluence is we talk about how design impacts the way we live, work, and invest. And I think that goes far to speak to local business and the struggle. And I think it's emotional. You were talking about it being emotional. It's because it's a struggle, right? We're so passionate about what we believe in, and now now you have these customers becoming part of that story and experiencing it with you. So there is a lot of heart in it. What advice would you give to a young person who wants to start something new? It doesn't need to be a bakery or a coffee shop. It can be anything, but there's certainly there's a tremendous growth that I can attest to, that I've experienced being an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you can agree with, that as you struggle through this journey of 10 plus years, you change, you grow, and
you adapt, right?
Yeah. And what advice would you give to a young person who's just starting this journey? And listen, it may not happen. Your chances aren't that good, but we still need to try.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, the thing that you said about it being emotional because it's a struggle, like, almost made me emotional, because I've never heard it articulated like that, and that's exactly what it is. And I think, so much of it is being okay of being afraid. Like, we talk to our kids all the time about how, like, you can't be brave if you're not afraid first. Like, you have to be afraid and do it anyway, and that's being brave. And so I think, like, now that we've been in it for so long, I do think that there's knowing the difference between being out of your comfort zone and being in over your head. I think figuring out what that is, like, that's so important to know. Because most of the time you are out of your comfort zone, but you're not in over your head. Like, you can do it. It just feels bad.
Yes.
Feels a little uncomfortable,
Yes.
But I think then being able to figure out, like, okay, but this feels bad. And like, and learning the difference between those things can be really hard, especially in the beginning, because you do want to say yes and you do want to be happy, which is, probably, I think if my husband Jeff were here, I think the thing he would say is how important it is to say no, and to be patient. And so, like, the number of times that people would be like, here's a spot, and we were like, no. Or we even talked, there are a couple spots where we're like, gosh, like, if we were ready, that would have been such a great spot, and we just weren't, and we knew we weren't, and we had to say no anyway, and that hurts. Like, that's hard. But knowing when to say no, and then knowing the difference between being out of your comfort zone and being in over your head, I think are pretty important. And then, so much of it we've already talked about, but it's like having those things that you hang on to that, I think that we've been really good about not following trends. Like, there's a lot of food trends and there's a lot of pastry trends, and I think it can be really easy to say, like, well, why, like, let's just do it. Let's just try this. Let's just try this. And then also having the confidence to say, no, that's not who we are. Like, this feels like us, or this doesn't feel like us. And, we've always said that we want the food to be approachable and familiar and authentic, and just like an elevated version of something you've had 100,000 times. Like, I want it to be the best cinnamon roll you've ever had. Everybody's had an egg sandwich. You've had a bacon, egg, and cheese everywhere. Like, but I want to make the best bacon, egg, and cheese you've ever had, So I think trying to stay true to those kind of things, even when it is tempting, or when somebody else is having a lot of success with something else, not chasing other people's successes and just really staying in your own lane. That can also be very hard. But I think it's also been, a real guiding force for us. And it's been something that I think has really worked well for us.
I love it. That is amazing, and that's great advice. I've had so much fun with this.
Yeah,
Paul?
it is
too.
a great episode.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to go back and visit again. And oh my gosh, yeah.
Lauren, where can people find you? What are your socials? Where can we go to learn more about Fox in the Snow?
So you can go to foxinthesnow.com. You can also go to Fox in the Snow Cafe on Instagram and Facebook. And we try to post there pretty regularly and keep up to date with whatever we're doing.
And shout out to Richard. So my friend Taylor actually plays pickleball with him. Yeah. So he's like, you're talking with, he's like, who are you talking with today? Jeff, Lauren? He's like, oh yeah, I play pickleball with Richard all the time. So apparently he's an avid pickleballer. So tell Richard.
Well, you know what's so funny?
Yeah.
Somebody was talking to us and they were like, how'd you find this social media guy? And I was like, he was a customer. Like, you know, he was an original customer, you know, long ago, like before he was married, before he had kids, you know. And so, yeah, I feel really lucky to be working with him and with somebody who I know likes the product and has for a really long time. And that's just a good person. So
yeah,
I'll let him know. I'll let him know that I did this and we had fun.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much, Lauren. With that,
thank you.
We will conclude our interview and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
This has been the ArcFluence Podcast. As always, you can get more information and additional content on arcfluence.com. Please subscribe on the platform of your choice and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.